Saudin Kalu, thanks for joining me today. My name is Ayo Myres and I'm your host for today. We're going live now. Good morning and welcome to the show. We're going live. Thanks for tuning in here on YouTube. Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. I am Ayo Myro Essay, and you're welcome to today's edition of Lagos Talks 981. It's a special. We're going to be looking at the Twitter ban in Nigeria in detail, especially as it regards the fundamental human rights of Nigerians. To discuss this with me, I have the Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, in the person of Engineer Gbenga Adebayo. Good morning, Engineer Gbenga Adebayo. Thanks for joining me on today's show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Also joining me, as he will be speaking on, is human rights lawyer, activist, professor and writer, former chairman of Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission, and currently the senior team manager for the Africa program of Open Society Justice Initiative. In the person of Mr. Chidi Odinkalu. Good morning, Chidi Odinkalu. Good to have you on the show today.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. All right, I'll start off with Engineer Adebayo.
Thank you for having me.
Can you hear me? Mr. Odinkalu?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. There's a bit. All right, okay. There was a drag with the network, but I'm sure that we'll be able to overcome as we proceed.
As I said, I do.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll start off with Engineer Gbenga Adebayo. Now, the Association of Licensed and Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria had announced that the directive to suspend the operations of Twitter in Nigeria came from the Nigerian Communications Commission. This is big news. It has been big news since the announcement was first made. And some people, a number of things around that. First of all is the legal right to suspend Nigerians' access to Twitter by telecoms operators. Was there anything the operators could have done, and what are the options so far?
Thank you once again. Thank you for having me, and good morning, listeners. Under the Nigerian Communications Act, which gives powers to the Nigerian Communications Commission to license mobile network operators, there are provisions for national interest. And under the provisions of national interest, where security and other concerns are expressed by government, we have no option than to comply with the directive of the Nigerian Communications Commission. That's what we have done. We hold a view of maintaining people's rights, both online and offline as an association, but we are bound by the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and as responsible corporate citizens, we have obeyed the directive as provided.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about, and that's very important, that you're bound by the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, the criticism for this direction is that it wasn't backed by law. So if it was backed by law, or if perhaps maybe we're missing something here, was it backed by law? I should ask the question. Was this a directive that was backed by law?
Well, in our understanding, the Nigerian Communications Commission Act, the Communications Act, which empowers the NCC, is a law of the land, and the provisions of that law of the land is what has been respected in this instance. So again, it's for experts in the Constitution to talk about it, but we do know that when the NCC directs that we should do something, once it is in line with the provisions of the Communications Act, operators are bound to obey those, respect those directives, and we have done rightly so. However, as I said,
can I ask a question, please, Mr. Adebayo?
Yes, please.
When did you please get? Good morning, sir. When did you get the written directive of the NCC, and what is the date of the directive?
We got it on Friday, and I think Friday is 4th of June.
4th of June, yes.
Yeah.
And it is dated 4th of June.
Yes, dated 4th of June, and before midnight on 4th of June, we comply with the directive.
All right. Thank you. I'll come to you, Mr. Chidi-Odinkala. I just wanted to set the foundation so that we understand from the perspective of the point of view of the telecoms operators in Nigeria. And I know that, Mr. Engineer Adebayo, this is not a very, I know the seat is hot right now, but I'm grateful to you for responding. Now, let me take a few, I want to quote you directly and just to ask questions around that. You made a quote following the directive from the NCC that based on national interest provisions in the Nigerian Communications Act 2003 and within the license terms under which the industry operates, our members have acted in compliance with the directives of NCC, the industry regulator. We will continue to engage all relevant authorities and stakeholders and will act as may be further directed by the NCC. So what a number of Nigerians would like to know, sir, is what's usually the process of these assessments? Because as has been pointed out, the letter was received by you on Friday, and before midnight on the same day, you carried out the directive. Was there any assessment, investigations, as or review done by Alton before taking on this directive?
We couldn't have done any of sort. The reason being that the Nigerian Communications Commission is our regulator, and once this is a regulatory directive, the process is that we will comply with those directives before we raise issues of concern. And like we said in that statement, that we will be cooperating with the authorities and providing the feedback. What we have done thereafter is to provide feedback to government on the reaction of the public, on the impact on the users, on the impact on the economy, and of course on the impact on our national network. And more than that, on the impact on the perspective of the international community on this action of government. But because directive is said to be based on national interest, we have had to comply with that. And after which we are now providing the necessary advisory to government on the impact of that decision. And we continue to do so as more information become available. Part of the information that has come to fore now is the economic loss. Part of the information that has come to the fore now is that there are businesses that are significantly impacted by this decision. Part of what has come to the fore now is that Twitter has its responsibility, government has its own responsibility, and also users have their own responsibility under the same conditions. So we think that the action of government is a bit heavy. It's heavy on everyone. It's heavy on Twitter. While Twitter has to apply uniform rules to its decision on matters like this, we believe that also on citizens who have a right to expression, government does not seem to consider those rights under this condition. So we are giving that advice to government and hoping that appropriately the government will consider those things. And more so also because it's one global community today. The world is watching what is going on here. We are an industry that is foreign investment dependent. Yes. And the signal that this sends to foreign investors at this time is not good at all. And if it can happen to Twitter, then it can happen to any other one. If we're talking about digital economy, national digital economy at this time, the world being a global village, this action of government can impact on a lot of things that would significantly affect our economy, both for now and for the future. The other thing that I would like to say is that Twitter is a conduit by which people express their opinion. Yes. And so the penalizing people for expressing their opinion on that, penalizing Twitter for people expressing their opinion on Twitter doesn't cure the problem. And the lawyer in the house will understand that more. So we need to go back to the basics. What are the issues that are being expressed on Twitter? So Twitter may not actually be the victim at this time. Maybe we need to look at our social situation as a people and address that more. than penalizing the one who provides the platform for which these expressions are made. That's my view.
All right, thank you very much, and I'll come back to you. But let me go to Chidi Odinkalu. Now, I'm glad that Engineer Adebayo talked about freedom of expression and how this curtails freedom of expression, or perhaps that Twitter is a platform for expression. Mr. Chidi Odinkalu, what a number of people have said is that this is an infringement on the rights of Nigerians for freedom of expression, and also GAG's press freedom, which is, as we all know, is critical to any thriving democracy. What is your take on this with regards to it? Is this an infringement on the human rights of Nigerians, especially as regards to freedom of expression? Also, research from SPM Intelligence says this is a social media ban. Is it a social media ban?
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. I feel rather ugly being invited to speak about this on this particular morning. And I hope you'll permit me or forgive me if I'm unable or unwilling to answer your question on the terms that you pose them. I will explain myself. 48 hours ago in Oyo State, nearly 50 Nigerians were slaughtered. 48 hours ago in Kebbi State, nearly 100 Nigerians were slaughtered. In Kaduna State, over the weekend, nearly 10 Nigerians were slaughtered. In the past 72 hours, all slaughtered. And you and I and Engineer Adebayo have been tricked by the people to talk about Twitter ban on this morning. I refuse to do so.
All right, so we're losing
because
connection.
It is irresponsible government.
Mm-hmm.
No, excuse me, please. No, I'm talking about them. Please don't interrupt me. I'm talking of people like you.
All right, so Mr. Chidi, I'm not trying to interrupt you. I'm trying to pass a message that the network,
who have been slaughtered,
as a network is dragging.
General
would it be
Buhari
possible at all to change your, would it be possible at all to change your source of internet speed? Because we'd really like to hear what you're saying. However, it's
sorry
not,
if you don't want me to speak. I'm off this program. You can get me back if you.
Oh dear. All right. Okay. So we would love, and I hope that our producer will get in touch with Mr. Odinkalu, because we wanted to hear what his position is on this matter. However, as you would hear, his network connection is very poor. I'm looking forward to him using another, hopefully, internet source and then coming back on. But if I get the gist of what he's saying, Engineer Adebayo, he's saying that in light of all that's going on in Nigeria, rightfully so, talking about a Twitter ban is almost insignificant in terms of there are people dying, lives are being lost, and this is a distraction from the real issues. However, for business owners, and since you work with business owners in the telco space in Nigeria, you wouldn't say that, because if it impacts businesses, there's a ripple effect on other aspects of society. This is not in any way downplaying the incidents in other parts of the country. We did talk about them in detail during Freshly Pressed 981. However, what people have said is that it goes beyond a Twitter ban. You know, Twitter ban is just an umbrella word for what is repression, a government that's not listening to its people, a government that doesn't conduct evaluation before taking on or making decisions or having policy changes, a government that is insensitive to the needs or the interests of the people. That's what this speaks to, beyond just a Twitter ban. Now, I want to talk about the impact on businesses. I know that from now, it's been 3 days, you would have started to get feelers from the operators, telecom operators in Nigeria, as to how this has affected business. What's your evaluation as it stands?
Well, thank you. May I just very quickly say that our condolences to the families that have lost loved ones. We sympathize with all. We pray that light perpetual will shine on the departed souls. We are deeply concerned about the feedback we are getting from different parts of the country. And we do hope that appropriately government, who has the responsibility for protecting all, will do something as quickly as it should be done. On the impact of business, unfortunately, when issues of national security concerns are being discussed, economic considerations will go to the backstage. And so at this time, as an industry, we're not evaluating the economic loss arising from the ban on Twitter, but we're looking at the social impact much more than the economic losses. What the implication of this is that this morning there are businesses that cannot do anything because of this ban. There are people who are on contract. This contract will not be impacted because of this ban. There is problem of international perspective about the country. There are discussions going on about foreign direct investment to Nigeria, which is now impacted by this. And more than that is that the population is quite upset about this action of government. And the more reason why government should look at this very quickly and reconsider their position on this. Again, if you look at cause and effect, it will appear as if we are blaming the effect other than addressing the cause. Because when the arguments have been made about people saying social media was used as an avenue to mobilize people for riot and all that, it doesn't take away the reasons why people are rioting. It doesn't take away why people are protesting. So if you don't address those fundamental issues and you come to the transport medium, medium like Twitter, to put a ban on them, to silence people from making their own comments and giving the feedback, it doesn't cure the problem. That said, the other issue that we need to begin to think about is that as a people, how does the international community perceive us? That government can wake up one morning and close a platform that people use to communicate. And information is power, communication is power. When you silence people via one medium, they will find another way around ventilating their opinion. And these are things that will not go away. So our appeal to government at this time is to consider this and many other factors and rethink about this decision. As operators and as responsible corporate citizens, we have complied with government directive. However, we subscribe to the right of citizens as enshrined in the UN Charter, that people's right offline and online must be protected. Must be given fair rights to express their opinion. We fully subscribe to that. And so in that regard, we are also giving the feedback to government that though we have complied with your directive, the feedback from the public is that people are quite upset about what has happened. And government needs to look at this for reasons of our socio-economic peace and development.
All right, excellent. Thank you. We need to go on a break now. Thanks very much. We've been speaking with Engineer Agbenga Adebayo, Chairman of Altin, and also Chidi Odinkalu, who's hopefully going to join us once we come back from this break. It's Lagos Talks 91 here on Smooth 98.1.
Future Forward Bank.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to try and hopefully, thank you so much.
What does Future Forward Bank?
The phone lines.
All right. Welcome back, Mr. Chidi Odinkalu. I apologize for earlier. The network was very poor and I think it just disconnected. I just wanted to, can we please check if your audio is back on?
Hi, good morning.
Okay, much better. Thank you so much. So we're going to come back to you straight after this break.
Your savings. Tune in to Smooth 98.
And we're still live on YouTube. We have Engineer Gbenga Adebayo, Chairman Altin, and of course, Chidiodun Kalu, human rights lawyer, activist, professor, writer.
Money matters with the experts and make mastery of financial management on the global scale. What a way to run your life. Personal Finance on Smooth 98.1 every Wednesday from 5:15 p.m. It's all about your finances made easy. Providence Bank. Future forward banking.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. It's still Lagos Talks 981 special. And we are speaking with Engineer Gbenga Adebayo, the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators in Nigeria, and Chidiodun Kalu, who is human rights lawyer, activist, writer, professor. We're looking at the Twitter ban and very importantly, the understanding human rights in Nigeria, especially as a democracy. Now, before I go on, it's important to mention that we're streaming this live on YouTube. Our YouTube platform is Smooth 981 FM Lagos. And in a moment, after the next break, we'll open the phone line so that we can get your contributions, comments, questions, and thoughts to our guests for today. Again, thank you, Mr. Chidiodun Kalu. Good to have you back on the show. You were speaking to the question around the Twitter ban, and you were making a case for what's going on in other parts of Nigeria in terms of the killings, the numbers of deaths have been recorded in the past few hours.
Yeah, what I was trying to say this, and it's important that we understand what the issues and the stakes are. It's easy to be flippant about human rights and about government and about the fact that we are Nigerians and that we are human. But what's the issue at stake here? It's the irresponsibility of government. All right? You and I and Engineer Adebayo could have been dead right now. It's what spared us. We were in a different place. And so in Kaduna, nearly 10 people slaughtered over the weekend. In Kebbi, nearly 100 people slaughtered over the weekend, Kebbi State. In Oyo State, nearly 50 people slaughtered over the weekend. Just 3 states. 3 states. And we are nearly at 150 killed in less than 48 hours. And the Monday morning after that, what are we discussing? Twitter ban. Are we not as irresponsible as our government? And we cannot even acknowledge our own citizens killed over the weekend, because that is what the government does not want us to do. Let's not get carried away by the talk of human rights, because to be able to do human rights, we've got to do right about humans. And doing right about humans is caring about our people, wherever they may be, irrespective of how they worship or what names they answer or which part of this country they come from. And our government chooses not to do that and chooses to distract you and I and Engineer Adebayo from doing that. And even worse, somebody like Engineer Adebayo, who is an employer of labor, instead of worrying on a Monday morning how he is going to have to keep his employees going and continue to drive his profits and earnings for that purpose, what is he doing? He's in a studio or fielding your questions about Twitter ban. Did he do Twitter ban? No. You can see he is very uncomfortable. Why are we not able to be better about ourselves?
Okay. All right. So, Professor Adebayo, just to respond to a few of the things you've mentioned and why this is important is that, number one is that we have talked about the incidents you've mentioned. We talked about it during Freshly Pressed 981, and it usually dominates our headlines as we do not take it lightly at all. In terms of the Twitter ban and how it relates to securities, that for a number of people and what has been accused is that oftentimes, the way that these incidents are amplified and the international world, and we get to hear about it, is on mediums such as Twitter. And if you ban or you do not allow that medium of communication, as with other social platforms, the information that we have to pass on will not be heard. And that is the reason why this kind of conversation, even though it wouldn't perhaps be number one on the headline stories, is also important. So when you went offline, I said something. I said that the Twitter ban conversation is not about Twitter ban. It's the umbrella name for that. But what we are addressing is a government that seems to be out of touch with the people, a government that wants to suppress the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech of its people, a government that wants to ensure that if we have the Great Firewall has been purported in the reports today, they control the narrative of what's going on. A case in point is with the EndSARS protests. There's still a debate around the number of people who were killed. In fact, there was a debate initially as to whether military officials were there or not. If we didn't have social media, we wouldn't have proved that there were indeed, military men there. When they couldn't make a case for that, was that they didn't shoot live bullets. If we didn't have social media, we wouldn't have been able to prove that there were indeed shots of live bullets. So that is the kind of conversation we're having. And so I do understand that there's an importance in terms of raising issues around killings, deaths, but we also need to ensure that the voice of the people is not being silenced. And that's what the conversation today is about, sir.
Can I come back in?
Yes, please.
Because what I have just tried to demonstrate to you and what you've tried to say is that the so-called national security imperative that, according to Engineer Adebayo, was cited in the memorandum, in the written directive sent to them by the NCC, is a distraction at best and is disingenuous by all means. So why is that so? Now, the bandits, allegedly, who killed nearly 100 people in Kebbi are not on Twitter. They are so illiterate, they can't even write their names, most of them. The people who killed the nearly 50 Nigerians in Oyo State are not on Twitter. They can't write their names. The people who killed the people in Kaduna State and abducted and raised the Assemblies of God Church and abducted people from worship are not on Twitter. So what is Nigeria's biggest national security problem at this particular time? It is insecurity. It is the fact that, and the so-called unknown gunmen, unknown men, or whatever they're called, in the southeast of Nigeria are not on Twitter either. They are not organizing on Twitter. They are not mobilizing on Twitter. They're not doing anything on Twitter. All right? So where is the national security imperative for banning Twitter from people who are not using Twitter to terrorize us? Can somebody please answer that question?
Okay.
Well, Professor, I align with you very much so on the number of issues that you have raised, and while you were offline, I also offered our condolences to families of those who have lost loved ones, and I had prayed for their soul. The issue of Twitter and Twitter ban points to a lot of other things. In the first instance, government has to be receptive to criticisms, because a government that's not receptive to criticism is not willing to take feedback from its people, and it's not willing to make amends, because if you don't know, then you don't know. So for us, if you go to a forum like a medium like Twitter, you place a ban on it because of what people are tweeting and what people are saying, it means that as a government, you are not willing to listen to what kind of things people are saying. And that's why this issue of Twitter ban speaks to a number of other things. Again, I said earlier, it's like blaming the effect instead of looking at the cause. Why Twitter has been said to be used as a forum for propagating propaganda and all the rest of them, it doesn't cure the fact that people have things to say. Doesn't cure the fact that people are talking. Now, we've heard less about this crisis in the north and in the south and even in the southwest this morning because of the Twitter ban. In the times when Twitter was active, a lot more people will be aware that this kind of thing has happened this morning, including real-time live information about what has happened.
Absolutely.
So there is a long-term effect to what we are talking about. And that's why we all must speak through to power. And that is that what is not good is not good. You cannot ban a forum of expression where people are saying what is there, and that there are significant issues and points in the issues that people are raising. And therefore, we must address those who are represented in government to the extent that feedback is part of governance. Feedback is part of good governance. And in truth, feedback is part of human rights. So while I agree to a large extent with what Professor has said, Professor also must speak to those who are in power about the consequences of the decisions that they take on people, in particular this issue of Twitter ban. And today it is Twitter. Who knows what is next? And these are things that we need to begin to address and to worry about. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. This has been a very good conversation, even though the direction might not even have been what we started with, but still very important in terms of what we're looking at today. We're going to break right now. When we come back from that break, we will open the phone lines and also take comments on our WhatsApp platform. We have an opportunity for Nigerians to express themselves and air their views, as long as, of course, it is within the guidelines of our broadcasting code. And hopefully would have our two guests respond to some of their concerns, comments, or questions. It's still Lagos Talks 91 here on Smooth 98.1.
Future forward banking.
All right. Thank you very much, sirs. We'll come back after a very short break.
Future forward banking mean?
And then we'll open the phone lines as well as take questions and comments.
Goals, or just simply getting service that is designed just for you. Yeah, we. Providus Bank. Future forward banking.
Okay, so we're coming back in less than 10 seconds
Listening to Smooth 98.1
for 10 minutes, and then we'll be back on. Thank you very much.
Providus Bank. Future forward banking.
Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. Lagos Talks 91. A good morning to you if you're just tuning in. If you've been listening to us, we've been talking on the Twitter ban, especially as with regards to understanding human rights in Nigeria. To speak with us, we have the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators in Nigeria, as well as Professor of Law and Human Rights activist writer, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. Before the break, we had touched on perhaps looking at what Professor Odinkalu had talked about was that there's so many issues happening in Nigeria of security concerns, lives lost over the weekend, yet we don't seem to be facing that, or this Twitter ban is a form of distraction. However, we also talked about the fact that if we had, Twitter is a platform of information and for campaigns and raising awareness. And if we don't have such a platform to raise issues such as this, then people are not informed, and we cannot hold the government accountable to act. I'm also very grateful to Engineer Adebayo for emphasizing the position of outing, that even though they have to obey the directives of the regulators, they're also looking to give feedback as to the impact to the regulators to ensure that they understand what's on ground. And now we're going to open the phone lines. We want to hear from you, to our listeners. 014489981 is the number to call, or you can send us a WhatsApp message, 0809-444-0981. I'll take our first call. And again, I just want to remind our listeners, when you do call, please ensure that it is respectful and that you do not use language that is not allowed on radio. Thank you very much. Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from, please?
Good morning. Please, can you permit me to remain anonymous?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
God bless you, Ayo Esemire, for this program. And God bless the two analysts in the house. God bless both of them. Adebayo has spoken very well, even though he's on the side of the government, but he has really spoken with his intelligence. And our Professor Ndika Kalu also, he has spoken very well on the side of the masses. That is pretty good. But the point is, how do you gag the people? When we look back, somebody predicted in 2014 as to what will happen, and it's really coming to play. What are we, the citizens, are doing about it? And look at the killing. And the government, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, is being silent. Always, the presidency is the one speaking. We have never seen the president or heard of him speaking to the people who voted him in. Is totally uncalled for. What are we, the citizens, doing? And yet, you send out people to kill and name people in the eastern region, this country, is so unfortunate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And before I take on the next one, I think that's a good good thing I would like for you to respond to, either Professor Odinkalu and of course Engineer Adebayo. What our caller has said is that we have clamored for the president to speak to the people, especially when we have, killings, violence across the country. Over the weekend, like you highlighted, Professor Odinkalu, we haven't heard anything from the president. Yet the response to Twitter was very swift and the actions taken thereafter. Do you think it's important to have the president of the nation address its people, especially when there's a call for it and when there are incidents of violence as such across the country?
Well, I'm sure Professor would like to respond to that, but I just would like to add a quick point. When something happens and it is tweeted, government sees it immediately. Government respond and react to it in one way or another, either by saying yes or no, it didn't happen, it happened this way. In essence, by that, they are called to account and they are called to account immediately. So imagine a situation where you don't have the real-time process of feedback. What happens? You have to write a letter to government. So imagine a letter going in the post, it's going to get there in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. If they like, they read it away. If they like, they don't read it away. And these are the implications of blocking platforms like this. And that's why we must speak the right things to people in authority. It's a means of feedback. This feedback is a part of good governance. This feedback is part of the right of the people. This feedback is a way of holding them to account, and they must allow it to stay. But I'll yield the floor to the professor.
All right, thank you, Professor.
No, I'll actually continue from where Engineer Adebayo stopped, because in addition to feedback, you actually oversight government. You have civic oversight of government from this. There are lots of incidents that will not get noticed by the people in office, or even if they get noticed, the people in power may be misled by those who have an interest to serve. I mean, if you take Niger State, for instance, Niger State is nearly 10% of Nigeria's landmass, over 76,300 square kilometers. Basically, all of Southeast Nigeria is barely about 38% or thereabouts of Niger State. Okay, that's all the 5 states in Southeast Nigeria will be 40% of Niger State, just to give you a clue of how big that place is. And that means that most of the things that take place in Niger State are not actually reported or noticed by anyone. And it takes people on Twitter, on platforms like Twitter and Facebook, to be able to bring this to the attention of government, right? Yeah. Now, but I would go to more fundamental basic points. Choices have consequences. To be fair, Mr. Buhari has not misled us as to whom he is. We chose to mislead ourselves as Nigerians and believe that a man who ascended to the presidency at 72, after he had lost the job 35 years earlier as a 42, 43-year-old, could have changed himself fundamentally. So, and in that period between 42 and 72, he had not gone to university, he had not built any business, he had not published any book, he had not employed anybody, and he had not in any way manifestly improved himself. But we believe that he had changed. And so we got what we asked for, a man who, to be fair, was honest about who he was, a narrow-minded person who had a particular view of how to do things, basically a military autocrat. That is what we got. In 1984, he enacted Decree Number 4, which was the Public Officers Protection Against False Accusation Decree, under which the media could not function. In 2021, the platform now is Twitter, and they've gone after it. God bless our choices.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Odinkalu. We need to go on a break now. This is a short one, and then we'll come for a longer talk period. And this time, we're going to focus on the people. I'd like to take some comments on WhatsApp and then our phone calls. Thank you all for listening, and thanks for your conversations. If you see them on WhatsApp, I will take them once we come back from this break.
Ask him. In case you don't know him.
Thank you so much, Prof and Engineer Adebayo and Professor Odinkalu. Really grateful for your time. May I just ask, Engineer Adebayo, I know you noted that you had an interview, you had a meeting at 10 a.m. Are you still
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So once we come back, we have quite a number of comments on WhatsApp. I'd like to open the phone lines to really get Nigerians talking. It was just because at that point, the comment the caller made was quite important because a number of people had said that they wanted the president to speak to them on important issues, and he didn't. However, his response to a deletion of his tweet was quite surprisingly quick. And just like you mentioned, Professor Dinkalu, a number of things happened over the weekend, still mute from the presidency, yet fighting people speaking back. So I'll take comments to that because a number of people have things. I'll start with WhatsApp and then go to phone calls. Thank you so very much for your time.
Sure know how to take care of my stomach.
And your heart, especially. Switch to Mamadol and enjoy healthy and tasty meals. Mamadol is tested and approved by the Nigerian Heart Foundation. Cook with Mamadol, your heart will sing.
Are you saying I'm still okay? No, it's fine. I need it though. I take it.
At the cinema, it's done.
Okay, we're back in about 40 seconds.
Or maybe I can take it in front of my favorite CS photo.
Thank you.
Stunning pictures in low light and the MediaTek Helio G95 processor for quality gaming and streaming performance. Techno Camon 17. It's time to stand out.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. It's still Lagos Talks 981. This is part of Smooth Breakfast Show. I'm Ayo Myro Essay. Today we're looking at the Twitter ban. However, as we have expanded, it goes beyond just the Twitter ban by the president to other issues around human rights, around expression, freedom of expression, around issues on freedom of speech and holding the government accountable. This is also side by side with unfortunate incidents over the weekend in different parts of the nation, in the north, in the southwest, and the number of deaths that have been recorded. We said we we're going to open the phone line, and for this next few minutes, we're going to take calls and comments on our WhatsApp platform. I'll start with WhatsApp and then we'll go on to phone line. WhatsApp is 0809 444 0981 and call is 0144 89981. I still have my guests online, Engineer Gbenga Adebayo from Alton, that's the Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators of Nigeria, and Professor Chidi Odinkalu, human rights lawyer, activist, writer, here with me on the show. All right, let me go. Peter from Festac says, good morning to the analysts. God bless you. Sorry to say Nigeria is being ruled by presidency. And last time I checked, we voted for the president. Nigerians got what they wanted by buying all the markets, and now we are paying for it. I think just to mention that we talked about it. I think Cheta said something earlier this morning about him being our employee. He was voted in. He's not a dictator. We employed him as it were through our votes. Bengo says, what people call being gagged is when they're not allowed to insult people or a race based on their religion, ethnicity, or their background, and also heat up the already tense situation in the country. Interesting perspective, Bengos. It's good to see or hear what people feel or how they feel about certain things, and also to perhaps, give information and educate people. Okwe from Ikeja says, even the president speaks to the citizens through Twitter. When last has he done a press briefing or reacted to these killings on national television? Twitter exposes the truths in our nation, which is why they are trying to shut it down. Ima from Ijegun says, it is a shame to Nigerians for the Nigerian government to ban Twitter. In my opinion, I think the president is responding to the removal of his tweet. Let us not forget that it was with the tweet handle that the culprit who raped and killed a job seeker was revealed and apprehended within 48 hours. Please, we need such media to help ourselves in Nigeria. Thank you. I'll go to the phone lines now. Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from, please?
Hello, good morning. My name is Obayomi, calling from Shukuru.
All right, Obayomi, please go ahead with your comment.
Okay, my comment is actually about two things. One, the issue of the Twitter ban, and secondly about the case in the jet tour over the weekend. Concerning the jet tour, I would always like us to direct things to where they happen. One happened in Ibadan, that other one happened in Jos. Have the state governors of this place, have they made any comments? Because we tend to always want the president to do everything. We have elected state governors who take out security. I don't want to dwell too much on that.
Okay.
Have the state governors come out to say anything about the killing? The one happened in the Gongo, something happened in that particular spot before. What security measure did the governor of Oyo State take to make sure that this did not happen again?
All right.
But then secondly, on the Twitter ban, events led to this thing. The government did not just come and say, we're banning Twitter. The government felt it was being unfair when you have somebody who was threatening the lives of people on the same platform, videos, audios, and that person's comments and videos were not taken down. But when the president of the country comes to say, to you guys killing the police, killing soldiers, we will deal with you in the language that you know. And then the majority of us tweaked what he said, saying that it is directed at the people of the Southeast.
All right.
No, sorry, no, you see, this is my own opinion, and I should be allowed to also comment because I don't think I'm the only person who feels this way. That what the president said was not directed at people of the South. It was directed at the criminals in Nigeria,
All right.
burning down INEC offices, those doing all those things. So we feel that if Twitter should have the right to delete the president's tweets because of their rules and regulation, Twitter is using Nigeria's airspace too. How do we now focus on going forward that the malicious and threats on Twitter, how do we get to ensure that not only Nigerians around the world, how do you ensure that such words are not allowed on social media?
All right. Thank you very much, Obayomi. I'll need to let you go now. And I'd have to say that for subsequent calls, I'll time it so that we can get in as many as possible. However, just to respond to the fact that I'll come to you, Engineer Adebayo, shortly, that just to respond to the fact that you talked about the government statement, what is he doing? Whilst, yes, he has responded, he gave a statement after the unfortunate incident in Igongo. However, we must remember that security services report and are controlled by Abuja. And that is why the focus is often on, or usually on Abuja when it comes to incidents like this. Of course, the governor has a role to play, but there's also a case for, for police reform, bringing it down to having security be the purview of state governments, not at federal level. And in Adebayo, talking about technology, how we can curtail, hate remarks on social media platforms like Twitter.
All right, thank you. I'd like to respond to some of what the last speaker said, and I must thank him for bringing those issues to the fore. In the first instance, Twitter as a platform must apply uniform rules under all and every circumstances. They can't pick and choose. They can't pick what they apply to where and when they apply it. I think that's a principle of governance that they must ensure that they guarantee. That is on Twitter. On the second part, what people say on that platform, Twitter cannot be the policeman for people's moral conduct. You have many people who have different aliases on Twitter. They say all kinds of things, some of which have no basis in truth. And so we need to go back to the basics. What has happened to our moral conscience as a people? What has happened to our sense of national orientation? What has happened to our value system? Why people go out, they know that what they are saying has no basis in truth, has no truth, but they just will continue to propagate this kind of things. Twitter cannot be blamed for that kind of a thing. So in essence, we need to go back to the basics. What has happened to our value system? What has happened to our sense of moral obligation? What has happened to our sense of truth and honesty? And I don't think that anyone can help us. We need to go back as a people to those value systems to be sure that when people come out to say things, they are saying it and their conscience is their judge in what they are saying. For that being expressed on platforms like Twitter, certainly Twitter should not be blamed for. So we should go back to the basics on what has happened to our value system. Also, the other thing is that on the side of government, this kind of feedback, once they have elements of truth in them, government has a duty to respond to them. But banning the platform is certainly not the right response. You must allow those platforms to be open. You must allow those lines of communication to remain open and active so that you actually know what is going on. In some cases, like the professor said, number of incidences are not even reported on the conventional platform. Twitter is an avenue that people hear it in real time and in truth and in openness. So if you ban those kind of platforms, you are basically preventing people from giving the right feedback that you need to have in order to actually provide good governance. Thank you.
Thank you. I think people must also remember that thousands of Nigerians reported that actual tweet. So Twitter didn't just indiscriminately delete tweets. It was based on community guidelines and people reporting that particular tweet. Professor Dinkalo, do you have anything to say on this matter?
Yeah. Again, it's it's like I'm a member of Engineer Adebayo's association because it's difficult to find anything he says that I disagree with. So I probably want to apply to become an associate member of the association that he leads while he leads it. If I may, we've got to be careful. There are two huge tragedies in life. One is not getting anything you want, and the other is actually getting everything you want. The response by the last speaker, Mr. Abayomi, or what did you call him?
Yes, Abayomi.
I hope I've not messed up his name, and if I have, I apologize. Actually falls into a particular error that he needs to be made aware of, in my view. It's the error of trying to equate President Buhari with Nnamdi Kanu. We've got to be careful. The president of a country is not a demagogue. The president Nigerians elected in 2015 was one who promised them change. Admittedly, he did not say the kind of change, and a lot of people hoped the change was going to be positive. Whether this is the change they hoped they were going to get is up to those people to determine. However, that president, if they had believed that they would get to a point where they'll be comparing the entitlements of that president to express himself with, or the best skills of that president in expressing himself to be the level of Nnamdi Kanu, I am sure most Nigerians would not have contemplated voting for him. I refuse, under any circumstance, whether it's a president I support or do not support, like or do not like, I will never equate a Nigerian president with Nnamdi Kanu or with a bandit from anywhere, because that is not the office. It is the responsibility of the president to elevate the tone of our civics through his expression, through his comportment, through his empathy, through his symbolisms, through his conduct. And anybody who is saying, oh, well, you know what, Twitter should treat Buhari like it treats Nnamdi Kanu, demeans Nigeria and does not wish the country well. That is what that's the only thing I would want to add to this.
Excellent, thank you. It's interesting that you use the same words and terms as Cheta used this morning during Freshly Pressed, in terms of comparing the president of a nation like Nigeria, the big brother of Africa, the greatest black nation, as it's often referred to a demagogue such as Nnamdi Kanu. Faith also shares that thought on WhatsApp. I'll take one or two more calls as we begin to wrap up today's conversation. Someone said we should extend it to 2 hours today. Unfortunately, our time is limited and we can't just deal with what we have today. I just want to say a big thank you once more to our analysts who have just been very excellent today. Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes,
Yes, sir. Yes, please. You have 30 seconds to a minute so that we can take a few more. Thanks.
Yes, I'm actually disappointed in the Professor Odinkalu.
May I please know your name? Could you kindly tell us? Could you? Sorry?
My name is Alajadamu.
All right, go ahead.
Professor Odinkalu is supposed to be an elder statesman, person that have worked or knows the internal workings of government. He's supposed to suppress this kind of nonsense that is happening rather than fanning the embers of hatred. If he could not condemn what happened in the Southeast, he has no moral right whatsoever to say what he's saying. Good morning.
All right, good morning. Thank you very much, Alaji Adamu. We'll take a few more calls before we go on. As you mentioned, everyone is free to express your thoughts as long as it's respectful. Yes, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from, please?
From Ilasa.
Adebayo from Ilasa. All right, go ahead, please.
Thumbs up to Bengus. I always tell you, look, let's take a long look at ourselves in the mirror and call ourselves what we deserve to call ourselves. We are so hypocritical. You can compare that. You can't compare against the financial. You have the candle. You can't depend on the gap left in the vision.
I'm sorry, the network is really bad. I need to take another call so that we can take. I can hear you. Please call me back. Abayomi, thank you. Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, good morning. My name is Ibuku. I'm calling from Ikeja.
All right, Ibuku from Ikeja. Go ahead, please.
Ingenious to say, oh, the president was talking about people taking ballot boxes. No, he made a reference to something that happened 30 years ago. He said, we were in the field 30 years ago. He wasn't talking about ballot boxes. So let's not try and mix up issues here. He was not talking, he was referring to the Civil War. And the Civil War was fought between the people of Biafra and the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
All right.
To cloud the issues here. Right. What the president, as your speakers, analysts have said in the studio, what he said was unpresidential. His manner was unpresidential. The same way Trump was talking about being unpresidential. Mm-hmm. So I think people can come and express their opinions, right? But let's not muddy the waters and confuse those that don't know.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks. To take one or two more calls, I'm trying to squeeze in because we're out of time. Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from, please?
Good morning. My name is Gabriel. I'm calling from Lekki.
Gabriel, go ahead.
Okay, well, there's reanalyze this whole thing happening. I said to myself, when a baby, when someone give birth to a child, one of the first things you look out for is to hear the voice of that child. And so some doctors, at some point, they go ahead to look for a way to force the child to either cry, but at least to hear the voice of that child. So what the government is doing by trying to ensure that the voice of the people is not heard is inhuman. The ability to speak and for you to be heard is a God-given gift. So if a man is trying to hold back your voice, it simply means that you think you don't have the authority, you don't have the right to exhibit a free gift given to man by God. Obviously, is a man that is proclaiming the same thing. So for me, totally, the government needs to first of all start admitting that every man's voice is his right, and you cannot hold back anyone from speaking. This has been the order ever since. But technology has saved us and has helped us to review what has been going on. So all these things need to stop. And I want to applaud Nigerians for speaking up, for contributing.
All right.
And that is exactly why things are like this today. So Nigerians, I give you guys thumbs up. Thank you for speaking up.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And that's how we're going to wrap up today's conversation. See more calls coming through. Unfortunately, we can't take any more, neither can we take any more comments. I'll just allow our guests to give final statements and then we wrap up the conversation today. Engineer Adebayo, please, and then Professor Odinkalu.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. I think we must continue the conversation through all available means. We must not stop talking. The people in government need our feedback to be able to know how right or wrong their decision is. And I will encourage people to also try and exercise some sense of moral conscience in the things that they do. Thank you very much for having me, and have a good morning.
Thank you very much, Professor Odinkalu.
I can't improve upon that. And I think it's important that we hear all shades of opinion, including those that we don't like and those that don't lionize us or the people whom we support. And just as a matter on a point of fact, I have worked on picking up and counting dead bodies in Nigeria. I've been doing that since 1988. Let me repeat myself. I have been counting dead bodies, irrespective of which part of Nigeria they come from, since 1988. And in Southwest, Southeast, Northwest, Northeast, North Central, and everywhere in the country. Because I believe that every Nigerian who is killed unlawfully is entitled to acknowledgement and recognition. That will continue to be so, and that has to be a priority in this country. May God bless our country.
Thank you so very much. A big thanks again to our listeners. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. And we cannot extend our thanks enough to our guest today, the Chairman, Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators in Nigeria, in the person of Engineer Gbenga Adebayo, and of course, a man who needs no introduction, human rights lawyer, activist, writer, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. That's been Lagos Talks 91 for today. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. We do this again tomorrow morning, same time, 9 o'clock. In the meantime, enjoy some great music. We have something special for you coming up at 10:15. So stay tuned here on Smooth 98.1. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
have a good
much
day.
for coming on board. Thank you, sir. This is Lakumi.